Hey guys, we're excited to do this. My name is Chase Jackman. I'm a neuroscience student here at BYU. I applied to med school this cycle, so in a couple months here, I'll hopefully be applying and in the next year get accepted to go to med school.
I'm Parker Paulson. I'm also a neuroscience student here. And like Chase, I'm applying for med school this year, and I graduate next year. So we are here and we're really excited to talk about a lot of the functions of the brain because it's what we study, it's what we love. And it's cool because it applies to everyone. We all have brains. And so it's really helpful to learn about why brains are important, the different structures that they have, the importance of individual structures, and some things that we can do to keep our brains healthy and have us stay happy. So we're gonna send out these 4 videos and we're gonna outline, like I just said, the different structures, and hopefully you guys can walk away with greater understanding and a greater desire to keep your brains healthy.
Yeah, and so we just give you guys an outline of what we're going to do for these 4 videos. We'll talk about the structures, like he said, explain what we know about these structures and everything. And we actually have a sheet brain here that you can see, and we'll show you different areas of it on the sheet brain so you can get kind of a visual of it. And then we will end each video with just a quick tip to keep our brains happy and healthy, something that we can do personally to make sure that we stay healthy with our brains. So let's get going. Let me share the screen here with you guys and we can start. Let's present it as well. Okay, as we know, our brains are amazing. We kind of went over that a little bit. Okay, that works. Okay, so this is just an outline of a little bit of what our nervous system looks like, what the brain sending signals throughout the brain looks like. As we can see up at the top, here I'm going to put a spotlight on so that we can kind of show. Oh, up here at the top is what we have called the central nervous system. This is what we classically think of as the brain, the central nervous system. It's where our thoughts originate, and a lot of our autonomic functions or our automatic things that our body does originate up here in this stuff. And then as we come down with all these little yellow lines, and on this one, all these little yellow lines, we have the peripheral nervous system. And these are the signals that send information to your muscles that tell them to contract so you can walk and lift things up and all that. Right? And so we have the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. And in these videos, we're going to focus more on the central nervous system and its functions.
So the basic anatomy, or the most basic structure in the brain, is what is called a neuron. And these are single cells, and they receive and pass information to other neurons. And the brain is really cool because it has a very complex network of billions and billions of neurons. And all these neurons together can do incredibly complex tasks and send really complex information. So just the basic anatomy, the basic structure of a neuron is you have the dendrites on the left here. I'm going to use the spotlight. Yeah, these are the dendrites, and these are what receive information from other neurons. And then you have this nucleus, and this is where the DNA is found, and this is where the instructions for actually making the neuron are found. And then you pass down here, and this is the axon. This is like the wire of the neuron, and this is where the electrical signal is sent down. And then you have these axon terminals, and in these terminals here, you have chemicals called neurotransmitters, and these are sent out into the brain, and they actually will make contact with these dendrites on another neuron, sending signals down the line. And then just a little more detailed here, you see right here is the axon terminal, and this is called a synaptic cleft. And then here is the dendrite of another neuron. So these are the chemicals, and it makes contact with the dendrites, and then an impulse can be sent. But the interesting thing is that sending signals throughout the brain, I mean, this is one neuron we're looking at, but there are billions and there's a lot of connections on different neurons. And so it's kind of like a game of tug of war because some of these chemicals or neurotransmitters, they're trying to block signals from being sent. And then there's others that are trying to send a signal down. And so the combined activity received by these dendrites determines whether or not a signal will be sent down the line.
Okay, so we're just going to quickly review the 4 different lobes in the brain so that we can know what we're going to be talking about. And then, of course, there's a couple other things as well. And so up here front, this blue section is what we have what is called the frontal lobe, right? Here we have the green section here, and we'll show them here on this brain too. So this front section right here is the frontal lobe, okay? And then we have the yellow here, which is the parietal lobe, and that's going to be up top here. We have the temporal lobe, which is green right here, sits right behind your ears, and that's down in here, right? And then the occipital lobe is in the back, controls the eyes. So we have the occipital lobe back here. And we have 2 more things. They're both white down here. First one is the cerebellum. We have that here. And the last one here is the brainstem. And that is going to be this thing sticking out right there.
Oh, okay. So the general structure of, the brain is split up into white matter versus gray matter. And as you can see on the brain there, the outside is what's known as the gray matter, and the inside is the white matter. And what makes the difference is that largely in the gray matter, there's a lot of dendrites, and in the white matter, there's a lot of axons, and there's a lot of communication here. So this is a cool little part of the brain called the corpus callosum. And as you can see, it's pretty much entirely white. And that's because this is a structure that sends information between the sides of the brain. And so because of that, there's a lot of axons. There's a lot of basically wires going in between the sides. And what makes it actually white is what's called myelin. And myelin sheaths, basically they protect the axons and they make the signals go faster. Without them, the signals in our brain would go a lot slower, so they help speed up signal transduction.
Okay, so just a quick question. We have these bumps and grooves that we were talking about on the brain, and without them, how big would its surface area be? We have a bowling ball, full page of newspaper, a normal sheet of paper, or an avocado. Can't really have you answer here, but we'll have you think about that for just 2 seconds. An answer, and it's a full sheet of newspaper. So I personally am pretty grateful for these bumps and grooves throughout the brain that make it a lot smaller, because I would not like a big sheet of newspaper in my head, try to carry that whole thing around all the time. I have the mega mind head. And here we just have a couple of examples of different brains that of different animals. So we have the human one here, of course, and then we have the chimpanzee and rhesus monkey, 2 different types of monkeys, and you can see they're really similar to the human brain. And then we have the bottlenose dolphin, which is just looks weird, and I don't know very much about it, but it's pretty cool. And last one, we have the rat here, and it's kind of cool because the rat brain is very similar to our brainstem. It looks very, very similar to our brainstem and functions in a very similar way. That's why most studies, when they first start studying with live animals, they start using rats because it will react similar to our brain.
Okay, and so we have this fluid in our brain called cerebral spinal fluid. A lot of people will refer to it as CSF. That's what it means. And the function of the cerebral spinal fluid is that it buoys up the brain. It provides a cushion, and it keeps the neurons in a chemically stable environment because the brain is doing a lot of work and it produces a lot of waste. Just like your muscles produce waste as they contract, our brain produces waste as it processes information. And so it uses that fluid to get that waste out.
Okay, so today, the main part of the brain we're going to talk about is the brainstem. And we have a brainstem here, so you guys can see this is just the brainstem that I cut out of one of the sheep brains we have. So you have the brainstem there, and this is it. You can see it on the bottom there, on the brain still, right? So kind of sits right like that in the brain. And then it contains 3 different parts, this brainstem does. Up top here, we have the midbrain, then we have the pons just below it, here in blue, and then the medulla, or the medulla oblongata, is just below it here in green. And this is where most of the automatic functions are. This is where, well, as you can see here, just damage this and you forget how to breathe. Your heart will stop beating, you'll stop breathing. It does all that functions. It functions sleep, hunger, your consciousness, heartbeat, right? Breathing, all automatic things like that are controlled by this.
So something funny is this chicken called Mike the Headless Chicken Festival. And what this is you know, you've heard that when you cut the head off a chicken, it can still live for a while. And the reason is because in a chicken, the brainstem is actually lower down in the body. And so when you cut its head off, you normally leave its brainstem in there. So it can still do those basic functions. Obviously not breathe, but because it doesn't have, you know, like a tube to carry down air, but it can do all the basic functions. And so they had this chicken called Mike, the headless chicken. And after they cut his head off, he lived for a really long time. You were saying like 9 months, right?
Something like that.
Something
I can't remember
like
the
that.
exact amount, but yeah.
But yeah, really long. And so it just goes to show that even if every other structure of our brain was taken out, we could still, you know, potentially, you know, we could still have blood flow. Our heart would still beat. Some basic functions could still work, but we would be a vegetable with no thoughts, and we really wouldn't be a human at that point. We wouldn't be ourselves at all.
Yeah. Okay, one important part of just the brainstem and the bottom of the brain in general are the cranial nerves. The cranial nerves are, we'll answer this question, then we'll talk a little bit about them. So there's 12 different cranial nerves, and someone won a competition at Duke Medical for a mnemonic to remember all of them. And here we have, on old Olympus towering top, a Finn and German viewed some hops. Or odor of orangutan terrified Tarzan after 40 voracious gorillas viciously attacked him. And the last one, ooh, 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 to touch and feel very good velvet, such heaven. I think I've actually heard most of these with different teachers using them for whichever one they prefer. But the one that actually won the prize was B, the orangutan that terrified Tarzan. And here we just have the list of all of them. You can go through that on your own if you want. And they, as you can see, they come into the bottom of the brain here, mostly into the brainstem, and they control the basic functions of the brain. They're the ones that are bringing in this information to make sure that everything is still functioning properly.
So now we're going to talk about sleep, and this is the thing that we're focusing on to keep our brains healthy and keeping us happy for this video. So on the right here, these are just different. Have you ever heard people talk about brain waves? I'm sure you have. And this is what they mean when they say, oh, let me go back there. This is what they mean when they talk about brain waves, because depending on your state of consciousness, or, you know, depending on whether you're asleep, your brain produces different types of waves. So that's just kind of outlining that. And you can see here the different types of consciousness that the brain waves are associated with. And so specialists and experts suggest that we get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep for adults. And this varies based on age. Like for newborns, they want like 14 to 17 hours, but it goes down as you get older. And that goes to show that when we have new experiences and we're taking in a lot of information, the body uses sleep to consolidate or put that information together to create concrete memories that will last. That's why babies sleep so much, because everything to them is new. And so it goes to show that when you guys are learning a lot for tests or just new skills, it's really important to prioritize sleep, because sleep will help you remember those things. And if you feel tired between studying, it's good to take quick naps to rejuvenate, and it can actually help you remember things as well. And so another thing about sleep is that you can't make it up after it's gone, really. You can't go 3 weeks sleeping 3 hours because you were playing Super Smash Bros. Too late. You can't, it doesn't work like that. Once it's gone, it's kind of gone. And so it's important that we maintain steady habits of good sleep. And then the last thing about sleep is that, we love to talk about dreaming because it's kind of fascinating and mystical. And there are a lot of theories about the importance of dreaming, but it's kind of cool, and it is kind of mystical in the sense that we don't have concrete, conclusions about the importance of it. There are different theories talking about the importance of it. Some of them suggest that, we use, like I said, dreaming to consolidate information from the day. Another one is talking about how dreaming, we will try to synthesize experiences that haven't actually happened to try to kind of plan ahead for what if it happened. And then another is talking about how the unconscious kind of comes alive while you're dreaming and helps your your subconsciousness kind of present its feelings or desires more. And then another one is similar, just kind of taking memories and experiences and putting them together. And then the last one is that they suggest that we're better at problem solving when we aren't constricted by reality and when we're in that state of sleep. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different theories, but like I said, there isn't any concrete conclusions yet. And then just to end the video, a couple of concrete reasons why sleep is so important is that it can help us be more productive and concentrate. It can actually lower weight gain risk. And it's better for your metabolism, better calorie regulation, better athletic performance. There's lower risk of heart disease, which is the leading cause of death in America. More social and emotional intelligence. Basically, you get along with people better and you know how to make connections. Prevents depression. That's a big problem for a lot of people in society. Lower inflammation and stronger immune systems to keep us healthy.
Yeah, okay. So that's all we have for today. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you guys learned something interesting and new. And we'll continue this with the next video. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.